Yo, what's good people? Welcome back again to another presentation of the Yosef 2 Cents podcast. I am Yosef Isaiah Benjamin. And on tonight, I want to share with you from the subject as to why we neglect or abuse the elderly. This is one subject that is extremely uncomfortable to discuss, yet it is vitally important that we have this dialogue because there are some important truths that you may or may not know or believe. Don't worry, that's where I come into play. So for the next few moments, let us do what we always do, and that is sit down and reason together. We are broadcasting on Facebook/Meta as well as YouTube. And I am honored, as always, to have you to come on. Let's see who has joined us here. Brother Barron, good evening to you, sir. Thank you for joining me. Lady Marla, good evening to you, dear. Thank you for joining me. Erlene, thank you for joining as well. So let us sit down, unwind, and relax. And let us just reason together because there are some major life lessons to be learned behind this horrific incident and this horrific tragedy. Well, it's a tragedy, but thankfully nobody lost their life. There's some things that we all need to explore, and there's some things we all need to address. J. Cole, what's good? What's good, homie? Thanks for joining us tonight. We're getting things set up here. On the YouTube side, making sure everything is good. On the Facebook/Meta side, y'all good? Everything all right? Y'all excuse me while I drink my protein shake. Tastes pretty good too. All right, let's see what we got. All right. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, on the Facebook side as well as the YouTube side, thank you for joining us again on another podcast presentation of the Yosef's 2 Cents podcast. This is episode 322. I believe it is. It's well over 300. Sometimes it's just hard to keep up with it. And I hope that you've had a fantastic day. And I hope that your evening is the same. Fantastic and beautiful and majestic and beautiful. I want to talk about why we neglect or abuse the elderly. And there's a reason for this. There is certainly a reason why for this. I'm getting it set up here on my laptop here, and I want to give a shout out to Lady Marla for giving me the information on on the video that was out um, a few days ago. She was the one that gave me the information about these culprits. So I want to thank Lady Marla for giving me the information. And I'm pulling it up now on my laptop here. Give me 1 second. And because there's a reason why I want to talk about this. And the reason why that I want to talk about this is because too often, as I've said at the outset of this, we don't talk about it enough. And when it comes down to controversial subjects, we always shy away from subjects like this. Plus, when it comes down to being a caretaker of the elderly, this definitely hits home for me because for the final 2 years of my mom's life, I was her caretaker. But I'm going to delve a little bit into that as we progress. There was a video that was down everybody's timeline a few days ago of these little hellions, these little demon seeds, physically attacking their grandmother. And the little bit that I did see, it was very disturbing. And it was very, very, very hard to watch. It was. I didn't even get a chance to watch all of it because I couldn't watch all of it. It was too disturbing, and I just couldn't. I watched a little bit, enough of it to just simply talk about it. Just enough for me to share with you some important truths that you may or may not know at all. But again, shout out to Lady Marla for giving me this information. It says that the Sumter County Sheriff's Office has arrested 3 adults and placed several juveniles in the custody of DSS after a video surfaced the children abusing an elderly relative. And according to the Sumter County Sheriff, Anthony Davis, this past Thursday's last Thursday, authorities were alerted to what they call a disturbing video, in their words, that shows an egregious assault on an elderly adult by juveniles and was circulating on social media, showing at least a portion of the incident. The deputies say that the video was brought to them from a family member, spurring an immediate investigation into the attack. The deputies say that they determined that 46-year-old John McGregor Jr. was leaving multiple children with his elderly aunt for long periods of time, in some cases for days on end. According to the deputies, another family member, Malika White, was at the home as the children physically abused and repeatedly assaulted the woman in the video identified by the authorities as the grandmother. The deputies further go on to say that White even went as far as to record the beating, but according to law enforcement, never stepped in to stop the children. In fact, in at least one instance, White instructed one of the juveniles to grab a large pot from the kitchen and hit the grandmother with it. All three adults, 46-year-old John McGregor Jr., 27-year-old Darnisha Sanders, and 26-year-old Malika White, have been charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor and abuse of a vulnerable adult. Authorities tell us that all juveniles involved in the incident are now in DSS custody. See, I was going to talk about something else tonight, but I feel like this subject about the elderly being abused like this is an even more important subject than what I was going to talk about tonight. All right. Now, first off, I was raised old school. You understand? I was raised old school. Meaning that when you put your hands on an adult, that didn't happen. You never raised your hand to strike an elderly man or an elderly woman. Because when I was raised back in the day, when I was coming along, we had respect for our elderly. We had respect for the elderly man and the elderly woman. If anything, back in the day, we were their protectors from outside predators. Back in the day, we did not allow for our elderly to be worried or to be concerned about somebody attacking them, because we had it in our minds that all it took was one time for anybody to lay hands on our elderly. There would be an egregious consequence. Y'all excuse me, I'm drinking my protein shake. And so, because we were so ultra protective of our elderly, situations like this didn't take place. It didn't take place at all. If our elderly needed something, we went to the grocery store or the supermarket, and we got it for them. Back in the day, way back in yesteryear, there really was no such thing as no nursing homes or rehabilitation centers, because the home of the elderly mother and father, that was the nursing home. That was the rehabilitation center, their home, their house. That was the nursing home. And see, when we began to see the building of all the rest of these so-called nursing homes and rehabilitation centers, I'm going to delve into that in a moment too. There's a reason why. And I want you to pay close attention to my words, because I'm going to share with you some symbolisms behind these nursing homes. And it took me a little while to figure this out too. Somebody had to point it out to me. And once they pointed it out to me, certain symbolisms, right? Then I began to pay close attention. You see? But it's a tragedy all around. There are absolutely no winners in situations and scenarios such as this. There are no winners. There are no winners. There are no winners in this. There are only victims. And the biggest victim of them all is that elderly grandmother. Because if those juvenile delinquents had even the thought of doing that, man, you talk about a beating. Man, look, those kids, those demon seeds, there's really no telling what the hand fact would have happened to them. But see, there is a scenario. There are some things that we can learn from this. And see, first off, let me remind you of what the scripture says. See, I'm talking from a spiritual basis, a salvific basis, and then I'm going to talk to you about a sociological basis or a societal basis. But first, let's deal with the spirit, because the spirit is immortal. And when the spirit leaves the body, it's going someplace. So, here's the thing. In the scriptures, the children of Israel, ancient of old, right? And I'm going to get to your comments in a moment. Just bear with me. I gotta get all this that's on my mind. I gotta get it out. In the scriptures, when the children of Israel were perpetually defiant, when they were perpetually disobedient and disrespectful, because they decided to follow idol gods, and they started winking and blinking at other gods than the God of Israel. That was their first mistake. They chose to stray away from the God of Israel. And as a result of their perpetual defiance, disobedience, and disrespect, unfortunately, what we're seeing is the perpetual continuation of those who did not repent. Because every word that's in this book is being fulfilled right at this moment, right at this hour, whether you want to believe it or not. It's from a spiritual and a salvific basis. That's what's happening. Now, let's talk about what's going on socially. It also says in the scriptures that when it comes down to disciplining your child, what does it say in Proverbs, I believe? It says, spare not the rod. And when the scripture says, spare not the rod, that means if a child gets out of pocket, if a child gets out of line, what do? You reprimand them. We don't see any kind of children being reprimanded for their delinquency, for their disobedience. And this coincides with what I just said a few seconds ago when it comes down to us being disobedient and not obeying the word of the Most High. This is the end result of it. See? This is the end result. So we stop sparing the rod. We stop disciplining our children. And back in the day, when children did any wrongdoing, guess what happened? We stopped disobeying. We stopped obeying and started disobeying the Most High. Now, I'm not saying, or I'm not talking about those parents that are severely abusive to their children and will beat their children for any little small infraction. No. I'm not trying to do that. I'm not trying to say that at all. But what I am saying is whenever we got out of pocket, we talked back. We did not take heed to the counsel of our elders. What happened? We got beat. Let me tell you a little story about Mom. My oldest brother, he stayed in trouble, man. He'll tell you. My oldest brother, he stayed in trouble all the time. And whenever Mom told him not to do something, guess what? You know it. He went out and he did it. Yep. He went out and he did it. Yes, he did. One day, it got so bad until let me Mom was only 5'4", man. Mom was only 5'4", but Mom was not a typical mom. You understand what I mean? There was nothing typical about Mom at all. There was nothing typical about Mom whatsoever. So Mom is 5'4". My oldest brother, he's taller than Mom. And see, one day, my oldest brother was caught smoking weed, smoking reefer. And it was in an old vacant car, you know what I mean? So my mom did this. Come here. You know that evil look, like, bring your, one of those looks, you know what I mean? And so my mom would take her foot and point her toe out. And she told my oldest brother, come here, put your toe right here. So now all of a sudden, my oldest brother, he's scared to death. He's scared. My oldest brother, he's scared to death. So he's slowly taking his time, and he's slowly taking his time putting the getting his toe, toe to toe with mom. One day mom got smart. So when my brother wasn't moving fast enough, I mean, it's funny now, but it wasn't funny then. So when my brother wasn't going fast enough, mom with the quickness grabbed his collar and said, yeah. I mean, mom was 5'4", but mom was gangster. You know what I mean? My mom was hood. You know what I mean? And in those days, the circumstances, you understand, were of such, you had to do what you had to do to survive. We're talking about the 1970s. You know what I mean? We're talking about the 1970s. I wasn't even born yet. You understand? But believe me, I felt that little 5'4" woman's wrath too. See, and I'm going to get back to the subject in just a minute, but the reality is, back then things were just different because people were different. You understand? And because people themselves were different, things were different. Things were better. Things weren't perfect, no. But they were a far cry, you understand what I'm saying, than what they are now. So, and I'm gonna tell you, when mom was disciplining all of us, the reality is, we it sure didn't feel good, but we turned out pretty good. We turned out pretty good. But see, here's the thing. In those days, we had respect. We knew how to respect our elders. We knew how to respect our parents. And see, there wasn't anywhere near the single parent household like it is now, too. And if the parent was divorced, if the mother and the father was divorced, that father was still involved in the child's life. That's one of the differences between then and now. Let's see. Let me get to Kimberly, what's going on? Raphael, thanks for joining us. Miss Johnson, good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Happy to have you. So let's fast forward to 2022. We're leaving the decade of the 1970s. We're going back to the modern day, 21st century. This is a grave situation because in addition to us being and becoming more and more lawless, right? You also have to look at it from the view or the panoramic view of the situations that's going on socially. Actually, spiritually, socially, and scientifically, the three S's. That's what I want to talk about. We've already delved into the spiritual aspect of it. Now, socially, peep this. And this also has to do with social engineering, too. It's gotten to the point where you don't have to raise, or parents don't have to raise their kids anymore. And then you're popping out these children who did not ask to be born, and then you expect for somebody else to do what you're supposed to do as a mother and a father, besides just bringing this child into the world. See? And so, socially, who's raising your children now? Right? That's the question that has to be raised. The question is, who's raising your children now? Who's raising your kids? If the government ain't raising your kids, the television is raising your kids. And if the government or the television ain't raising your kids, the streets is raising your kids. And see, let's go back to the spiritual. Let's go back to the Salvinic, if you will. The record is that the time would come when good would be called evil and evil would be called good. That time is here. It is not to come. It is not to come later on. It's here now. It says in Job that this world or this realm is handed over to the wicked. That's what it says. This world is handed over to the wicked. In the prophecy of Isaiah, pay attention. In the prophecy of Isaiah, the 5th chapter and the 20th verse, it reads, "Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." Job 9:24 says that this world, this realm, is handed over to the wicked. It is also said in the Injil, or the gospel of Yeshua, in the book of St. Matthew, the 24th chapter and the 12th verse, where it says, "Because iniquity shall abound." Listen carefully. Because iniquity shall abound, the love of man waxeth cold. So, we have a perpetual continuation of lawlessness because people at large refuse to adhere the word of the truth, the word of the Most High, and they are allowing for the government, the television, and these streets to raise their children. That's why the children are so warped in their minds now. because the parents are not doing what they are supposed to do themselves. So, spiritually speaking, there's lawlessness. Spiritually speaking, there's lawlessness. Socially speaking, the government, the television, and the streets are raising your kids because you're too lazy to raise them on your own. Now, if that don't apply to you, let it fly. But if you get mad, especially when the truth is being echoed, that means you're guilty of the charge. Angel, what's good, sis? Thanks for joining us tonight. Listen, for those of y'all that are just joining us on both Facebook and Meta, welcome back again to Yosef's 2 Cents. I'm your man, Yosef Isaiah Benjamin. And tonight we're talking about why the elderly is being neglected and abused. And I'm giving out some scriptures as to why our society is such in a degenerate and a decadent condition. And spiritually, we have become lawless. We have become amoral with no regard for the Most High or respect for the Most High or respect for human life and understanding the dignity of human personality. And such is the case with these delinquents that we saw in the video that was abusing that grandmother. Lawlessness. Now, in this book, I'm going to talk to my Muslim brothers and sisters for a moment. In this book, in your Quran, take a look. In the 18th surah or chapter in this book called the Quran, in the 18th surah or chapter, is called the cave. And the question was raised, why is it difficult to teach our people? The answer is because our people have become savages. Matter of fact, let me turn to this book, this chapter right quick for just a moment. I ain't going to be long. In the 18th surah or chapter in the Quran is called the cave. Why is it called the cave? And I'm going to get to your comments in just a moment. I promise you I'm going to get to your comments in a moment. I haven't forgotten. But why is it called the cave in this book, the Quran? Why is it called the cave? Why is this chapter called the cave? Because it is addressing the decadent or primitive mindset or psychological apparatus and hygiene that is not pleasing to the Almighty. And it's talking about the decadency and the degenerate mindset and emotion and, in a nutshell, in layman's terms, we who are the chosen of the Most High, we have become and we have been a difficult people to teach and preach to in peace for a long time. Because if you stop and pay attention, all throughout the course of history, right? We have seen and we continue to see and observe and witness the perpetual decline and decay of our morals, our principles, and our scruples. That's one of the reasons why it's called the cave. That's how I understand it to be. You can't teach people because the Bible calls anyone who rejects knowledge and rejects wisdom and rejects truth, they're called a fool. So a fool is one who rejects knowledge and they've been living in the cave of decadency in the mind and the emotion. And such was the case when those three adults allowed for those delinquent children to abuse the matriarch of that family. And instead of that matriarch enjoying the fruits of her labor, what did this poor elderly mother have to do? This poor elderly grandmother have to do? She has to fend off hellions, little hellions, from her biological offspring, from her loins, because her children, I'm assuming, refused to correct them. I don't mean to preach tonight. I don't mean to preach tonight. This is supposed to be something for you to learn. This is supposed to be something for you to learn. So, social engineering, the whole brainwashing situation, the brainwashing horde, allows for decadence like this. And they think, and people are thinking that this kind is normal. What the heck good? What's normal about this? What's normal about any of this? What's normal about any and all of this? What's normal? There's nothing normal. And see, it also says in this book, listen, I got Christians, I got Hebrew Israelites, I got Muslims, and everybody else of all walks of life on my podcast who follow me. So I got to address all of it in different ways. It says in the scriptures that when you disobey your parents, what happens? You shorten your days living on the earth when you disobey and you reject sound doctrine, sound teaching. So this is the end result. And because they were abusing their grandmother, there's really no telling how long these demon seeds, I call them, really have. They have shortened their days because of their disobedience, the abuse and lack of morals and lack of character and lack of respect. What does it also say in the scriptures? Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days might be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Most High, Almighty, Supreme Being, true beneficent, true merciful, give thee. And when you honor your father and you honor your mother, you will be able to see a long life. You'll be able to see what the Bible calls white hair, hoary hair. And people that are not seeing hoary hair, it is a privilege that is being denied to too many because of situations like this. This is just one dimension of the example of evil being called good and good being called evil, and the world being turned over to the wicked. This is just one example. This is just one dimension. I don't have time to delve into any more. See? Back in the day, there was such a thing as if you got beat or you got disciplined by your neighbor, your neighbor would in turn tell your parents, and then you got another beating. Not literally beaten, but you got another popping. In those days, it really was a village to raise a child. But unfortunately, because of the brainwashing horde and the government raising your children, television raising your children, the streets out here raising your children, that village that produced honorable men and honorable women is long gone. Let me tell you something else too. But before I do, let me go back and acknowledge your observations. Let me go back and I'll read your observations. J. Cole says, I was a caretaker for my brother. I don't play that abuse-ish. Brother, listen, I was a caretaker for mom. I didn't play that abuse nonsense either. And I'm going to share with you some things about these nursing homes and about these hospitals too in a few moments. Brother Barron says someone will beat their rear ends in jail. You know they will. You know they will. Lady Marla says it's a sad situation. It is sad, and then some. See, we really don't have the words. No, none of us really have the words that's adequate enough to really describe the recklessness and the decadency and the degenerate life lifestyle of what's going on and what has been going on. Brother Barron says the upbringing is terrible. You know why it's so terrible? Because if you really think about it, the upbringing is really no upbringing. It's really no upbringing at all. If you think about it, there really has been no upbringing. Brother Barron is right. He said they had those adults pushing them to disrespect the elderly woman. Absolutely. Absolutely. And see, this is my personal belief and my personal conviction. When the Most High decides to punish them, and they will be punished severely, the punishment is going to befall the adults faster and worse than the kids. Now, am I saying that the children are going to are the children going to escape divine punishment? I'm not saying that at all. Because punishment may befall them too. I'm not saying it's going to happen tonight. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not saying it's going to happen next week, next month, or next year. I'm not saying any of that at all. What I am saying is the wrath of the Almighty, it's coming. When, I don't know. How it's going to come, I don't know. Because there are certain things that you just can't do. And let's say, for example, that elderly mother, or that grandmother rather, pardon me, she knows the Most High for herself. Remember, I keep telling you, you can't treat people, especially the sons and daughters of the Most High, any kind of way. That's dangerous. Lady Marla says, yes, teach. And she just echoed the scriptures because the scripture teaches, go ye into all the world and teach the gospel. Teach the truth. And anything that the Bible does not teach, we shouldn't preach it. And if you're Muslim, anything that your Quran doesn't teach, you shouldn't teach it. Let's say she knows the Most High for herself. Let me tell you something. If she knows the Most High for herself, I promise you, she's not only hurting physically, she's hurting mentally, and she's hurting emotionally. No patriarch or matriarch should ever have to go through the pain and the anguish of having to fend off your biological offspring that came from your adult children. Yeah. But unfortunately, my brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, sons and daughters of the Most High, this is the era in which we're living in now. It is. This is the era of lawlessness. I'm not going to be on much longer, but I got to get this out. Brother Barron says, get the leather belt out. You better believe it. You better believe it. J. Cole says, there are times parents take it too far and beat their children for every little thing. That's abuse of children, and as a result, they lash out at others. I concur. And unfortunately, you have a lot of cases where, and see, those are not real parents anyway. Nah, man. Those are not real parents anyway. You know why they're not real parents? Because a real parent would have been molding and sculpting and cultivating their minds to be a man or a woman of principle, of consciousness, to follow these laws and statutes and commandments of the Most High. But unfortunately, that's not the case. No, that ain't the case at all. Brother Barron says, it's a way you discipline kids. First, let them know why this action is about to take place. Parents don't know how to chastise these days. Man, you said a mouthful. You said a mouthful, Brother Barron, sure did. And that's the reason why back in the day, when children were disciplined, they were taught why they were going to be disciplined and chastised. Not today, as you just said. Not today. And remember, I said the problem also is that we stop sparing the rod. We got to stop sparing the rod. If push comes to shove, you put the rod on them. Lay hands on them. Don't abuse them, but you lay hands to shake them out of that dysfunctional side of them. Say, look, get yourself together. Remember, I said I preached Saturday night when I said, and I raised the question. Whenever we got on our parents' nerves, especially when I got on mom's nerves, she would ask the question to me, why is your head so hard? You either you have been a child and you gotten on your parents' nerves, or you are now a parent and you got children that's now doing the same thing to you that you used to do to your parents, get on their nerves. Right? See how things come full circle? Yeah. J. Cole says, but the kids today need a rod up there. They be trying to gang fight elders until they mess with the wrong one. They get popped in the face. You know it. You know it. Man, you'd be surprised to know just how many of these old school, these OGs, man, these elders, man, they still got a lot of fight in them. And then when one of them get, they get the gumption, they bring all these digits together and they pop one of them in the mouth. Mm-hmm. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Brother Barron says in those days, punishment by our parents had meaning. It sure did. That's why we turned out so good. And now it has to be understood by the child. Now, these kids don't have no respect for their own parents. They're scared of the kids themselves. Lord have mercy. And don't have no love for the kids they gave birth to. They gave birth to some wild animals. Brother, you preaching tonight. And it all goes back. And it all goes back to the reason why I made mention of the 18th chapter or surah in the Quran called the cave, and why it was called the cave. It gave birth to some wild animals. And as a result of that, spiritually, defiant, disobedient, perpetually, socially, like Lady Marla said, the government is in control of those kids. Sure is. See? Let's see. Lady Marla says parents say all kinds of pitiful excuses when it comes to raising these out of control monsters. Say it. Listen, I ain't preaching tonight. Y'all doing the preaching. Y'all the ones that's preaching. J. Cole says when their children are on the streets robbing people and they get shot, mothers still cry, he was a good boy. He was a good boy. He was a good boy. You sure said a mouthful. You're right. You're right, Brother Barron. They should have been cleaning up the house. You're right. You're absolutely right. Oh, Lord. Oh. Oh. Oh, Lord. Lady Marla said, I'm trying to get that. Lady Marla said the video looked like the Wild Kingdom. I mean, it's not funny, but it's true. And see, your observations, Lady Marla's observations, J. Cole's observations, Barron's, all of y'all, your observations is going right back to what the scripture says. Spare not the rod. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon which the land that the Most High gives you. And why the 18th chapter or the surah in the Quran is called the cave. That's right. Sister Earlene, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Exactly. Brother Barron also says they use the taxpayers' money to buy these out of control kids expensive shoes. I can imagine how they are at school. He continues. They are at home now in DCF, government White House. Boy, listen. It all goes back to like I said, the government is raising the government, the television, and the streets are raising these kids. I got a few more minutes before we wrap things up, but before I do, I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you again for joining me on the Yosef 2 Cents podcast. I'm your man, Yosef Isaiah Benjamin. And we are talking about why the elderly is being neglected and abused. Now, let me share this with you right quick about these nursing homes and these hospitals. Now, remember I said at the outset or the genesis of this podcast presentation that the home of the elderly man or the elderly woman was their nursing home, was their rehabilitation center. Remember I said that, right? I'm going to leave this open. Y'all remember I said that, right? All right. Now, why do you think, I want y'all to pay attention to this. Why do you think that these so-called nursing homes were established and they were put in place? Why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? I'm going to tell you why. Number one, we stopped caring about the matriarchs and the patriarchs of our family. We stopped caring because whenever an elderly man or an elderly woman passed away, they didn't pass away in disgrace, meaning they didn't pass away in these nursing homes being left unattended, being left dirty, being left unchanged, being left with the foul smell of fecal matter and urine in the air. They didn't live. All right, we're back on YouTube. I apologize for that. My Wi-Fi went out for a moment, but we're back on now. I'm going to say it again. Before the establishment of the so-called nursing homes and rehabilitation centers, the actual home, the actual residence of the elderly man and the elderly woman, that was the nursing home. They did not die in disgrace by being left unattended, needing to be changed, and you could smell the foul odor of fecal matter and urine in the air because they have been left unchanged and unattended. If you had children, if they had children, back in the day, if you had children, all children took turns being the caretaker of their elderly parents. There was no such thing as a so-called nursing home. They didn't play that. But the question is raised. Why has the nursing homes been established? What's going on here? I tell you what's going on. It's all about money. Number one. Because when anybody puts their loved one in these nursing homes, guess where the money goes? The money goes right along with the nursing home. And they get every dime of their disability checks. That's another reason. People stop caring about the elderly. They didn't want to be responsible for the elderly. And it's about money. You understand? It's all about money. And if you notice, I tell y'all what, the next time you have an opportunity to go to a nursing home, right? This is what I want you to observe. Here comes the symbolism. Y'all ready for it? Here's the symbolism. The symbolism of this thing is these nursing homes. When you walk down the hall, they look like prisons, don't they? They look like prisons without bars, don't they? I'm going to say it again. Next time you go to a nursing home and you walk down the hall, notice that on each side of the hall, there are rooms. But symbolically, they look like prisons. Prisons without bars. Have you noticed that? And the so-called workers or the so-called nurses, right? What happens then? What happens is there's the so-called wardens, if you please, if you will. But they're not worth 2 cents either. Yeah, the guards or the wardens, it looks like a prison. It doesn't look like a nursing home. And it doesn't have that homey feel. It doesn't feel warm. It doesn't feel cozy. It feels like an ice cold prison. Start paying attention. Start paying attention to that. Start paying attention to how the nursing homes are set up. A nursing home is supposed to have a warmth to it. It's supposed to be cozy. It's supposed to have a sweet spirit about it. Ain't nothing sweet about these nursing homes. Nothing. Ain't nothing sweet about it. No. Ain't nothing sweet about it. That's why back then, back in the day, back at home, the elderly man or woman, their home was a nursing home. And pay attention to this too. Pay attention to this too. As long as the elderly were in their homes, notice the life expectancy, or notice how much longer they lived as compared to going into that prison that's called a nursing home. Nursing home, nursing home, nursing home, nursing home, in quotes. Let me tell you something. When you take your elderly parents or anybody that's elderly in your family out of their home, you literally have just signed their death warrant. They're as good as dead. And I don't mean to sound cold-hearted and brash, but I got to tell you the truth. When you take them out of the home, out of the house, and into these prisons called nursing homes, a lot of times they don't last a full year. Their life expectancy ain't long. But as long as you kept them in their home, in their residence, they lasted for years. That's why do you think I said, ladies and gentlemen, that when they die, they don't die in disgrace? Notice I said that they don't die in disgrace. Notice I said that. When they died at home, they died with class. They died with dignity. They died clean. They didn't die with the foul smell of fecal matter and urine in the air. The stench of that foulness never reached the nostrils for long periods of time. And if the parents needed to be changed, the caretaker was on it immediately, expeditiously. That's why I said they didn't die in disgrace. Notice I said that. They did not die in disgrace. Back then, iniquity, it did abound, but it didn't abound like this. It didn't abound like this. No. It didn't abound. Wickedness did it abound. I mean, there was always wickedness, but it wasn't as acute and it wasn't as flamboyant like it is now. You understand where I'm coming from? That's what I'm trying to argue. That's the point I'm trying to argue. That's the point I'm trying to convey to you. You understand? But look what happened. And I'm almost finished when I say this. I'm almost done. But when you find yourself in a situation when you find yourself in a situation where people don't care about you, they have absolutely no regard and absolutely no respect, this is the result. It is. This is the result, man. Let me read your observations before I conclude, and I'll give you my 2 cents. Lady Marla says, parents, love your babies and yourself, and watch how God step and give your instructions. You are responsible for raising these kids the correct way. God will not overlook your unloved heart. I'm serious. And she's right. She continues. We didn't put our parents in the nursing home. They took care of us. So it was our duty to love them in return. Brother, and she's right about that too. Brother Barron says, many of these adult children are so proud to announce that they put their birth parents in the nursing home so they could chase these guys that don't want their rear ends anyway. Brother Barron, that's a sermon by itself. This is a good protein shake. Let what Brother Barron just said sizzle in your spirit. I'm going to read it again. Many of these adult children are so proud to announce they put their birth parents in the nursing homes so they could chase after these guys that don't want their rear ends anyway. Brother Barron, you preaching tonight. Lady Marley, you preaching too. All y'all preach. I just gave y'all information. Y'all the ones that's preaching. Let me say this right quick, and I'm gonna close. I'm gonna close with this by giving y'all a personal testimony. Y'all excuse me just a moment. But before I do, I want to thank y'all again for joining me on tonight's podcast. And I do appreciate it. Like the video, share the video, tag your family and your friends, and tell them about Yosef's 2 cents. And if you're watching by way of YouTube, I want to thank you for watching as well. And if you have not subscribed, tell your family and your friends to subscribe to Yosef Isaiah Benjamin on YouTube. Like, share, and subscribe. And if you will, please, ma'am, please, sir, donate to our cause. Our cause is important, and donations are always appreciated. My Cash App is $Hidden One Truth. Once again, that's Hidden One Truth. Now, let me close with this. And I'm not going to delve too much into this, but I want to share with you enough. I want to share this with you because you need to know this. The reality of the matter is, when it comes down to the subject of the elderly, I'm very, very passionate about it. And the reason why I'm very passionate about it is because for the last 2 years of Mom's life, I had the honor and the privilege of being her caretaker. And before my sister and I were Mom's caretaker, and I started being Mom's caretaker in the hospital, and she became in a system called palliative care. My mom was being neglected in the hospital because the nurses were not doing their job by having to take care of her properly. It got so bad until Mom developed a bed sore because of their negligence. So when my sister and I became Mom's voice and we became her advocates, drastic changes were made in the hospital. At one time, they had a time limit where visitation concluded. Visitation was concluded at 9 o'clock. It got to the point where they dismissed visitation hours. When they saw me coming into the hospital, they knew who I was. The security guards knew who I was. The nurses, the doctors, the techs, they know who I was. They knew who I was. And they knew that I was going up there to be with my mom. And they would always ask me, how's your mother doing? Somebody would always sometimes would give me a few dollars. And if they didn't give me a few dollars to get something to eat, they would give me lunch vouchers so I could get something to eat, because they knew I would spend time, a lot of time, all my time with mom, you see. And see, just like Brother Barron said, I would never put my parents in a nursing home. I didn't do that either. Nah, man. I never put my father or mom in a nursing home. I kept my father at home with me. And what happened was, we had a healthcare assistant to come out and take care of Dad. And y'all give me a moment. I apologize. Y'all give me a moment. And so when the health home nurse was taking care of Dad, she got pretty close with Dad. She became very fond of Dad. She looked forward to coming by the house to do for Dad, And when Dad passed on September 2nd of 2009, she got word that Dad had passed. And it moved her to tears, And so we fast forward to 2018, March 12th. That's when Mom passed, Both my parents may have died in different places. Dad passed away at home. Mom passed away in the hospital. But one thing is for certain: neither one of them died in disgrace in terms of being neglected. Nah. 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 They died where I could see. Where I could see them. Y'all give me a moment. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. So when Mom passed, and when Dad passed, they didn't die in disgrace. No. And when it comes down to my dad, I remember this like it was yesterday. I had just dropped off mom at the dialysis unit. It was around maybe 7:30 in the morning. I had taken mom to dialysis, went in, got back to our apartment, checked, looked in on dad, greeted dad, and looked in on him, you know, and I prayed with dad. I prayed with dad. I sure did. And as I'm concluding the prayer that I was praying for dad, I'm concluding the prayer. And as soon as I conclude the prayer, as I'm opening my eyes, dad's taking his last breath. Yeah. I'm opening my eyes. I'm concluding the prayer. And as I'm opening my eyes, dad's taking his last breath. So I went over to dad and I wanted to make sure I didn't want to make it look like, I was my eyes were playing tricks on me, you know what I mean? And and he took his last breath. Y'all excuse me a moment. Excuse me a moment. All right, I'm back. I'm back. I had opened the door for my nephew. I apologize. I had to open the door for my nephew. But I'm opening my eyes. Dad's taking his last breath. So I go over to his bed. I'm like, wait a minute. I wanted to make sure that my eyes weren't playing tricks on me, And I wanted to make sure before I started making my phone calls that dad had actually transitioned. And lo and behold, he did. And made the phone calls, called his home health care nurse, and I said to myself, how am I going to tell mom this? I mean, I can't hide it from mom, So I told mom, I said, Mom, I got to talk to you. And it's important. It's very important. And I got to tell you, first of all, I said, I want you, I need for you to sit down. I need you to stay seated. And the mom Dad's gone. I apologize again. On the YouTube side, I apologize. I apologize. Something's going on with the Wi-Fi. It's strong, weak, medium, and all that stuff. I apologize, but I told Mom. I said, Mom, I need for you to sit down. Dad's gone. Dad has passed away. That was 2009. And almost 9 years later, Mom passes away. My sister got a phone call from the doctor. My sister was getting ready for work, and I was asleep. And as I'm waking up at the same time, my sister's coming in the door. She says to me, she says, Joe, we got to go. We got to get to the hospital. Mom's heart is slowing down. And, I'm rushing, getting myself together. I'm still, half asleep, but all I heard was Mom. So I'm getting my clothes on. I'm rushing, and it's weird, waiting on the man. I'm sorry, y'all. As we're waiting on the cab, doctor told us Mom was gone. Mom had passed. And that's what happened. Now, I said all of that. I shared with you my personal testimony about my parents to tell you, don't make the mistake of putting your elderly parents in the nursing home. If at all possible, you keep them with you. That's what you do. You keep them with you. You understand me? Don't you dare call yourself going to send your parents to some doggone nursing home. Because once you put them in a nursing home, you've already signed their death warrant, and then you ain't going to see them the way you should. You forget about them. Forget about your parents. And for you idiots that's so proud about putting your parents in a nursing home, you a fool. The biggest fool. It wasn't easy taking care of two sick parents. It wasn't easy. But you know what? I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did it. And for all the idiots that always has something to say about me not having a job at the time, you always got the most to say when you're not in the same situation of having to take care of two sick parents. You always got the most to say. So if you don't have anything positive to say, shut the hell up. Keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything at all. Because taking care of two sick parents was a challenge. But the Most High brought me through it. Just like the Most High carried my sister and I taking care of Mom. He brought us through it. He doggone sure did. He brought us through it. So that's why I myself have learned that if you've never been in a situation like somebody else is facing, and if you don't have an encouraging and a kind word to say, keep your mouth shut. Don't say nothing. Don't say nothing. Because it's always the biggest loudmouths that would do the least if the situation that I was in and they faced, they would do the least. I close with this. I've held y'all long enough. Oh yeah, I'm way over time. So that's why the biggest secret as to why the elderly are being abused and neglected, because collectively we stop caring about them. We don't care. Because in our eyes, they're disposable. They are disposable. I apologize, folks, on the YouTube side. I apologize. I'm wrapping it up. You take care of your parents. That's what you do. And the very same ones that's talking about you need to get a job, you need to get a job. How the hell fact do I get a job at the time and I had two sick parents and I couldn't get a job? See, it's always niggas with the most to say. They got the most to say and would do the least. If you weren't going to help me, You should have kept your mouth shut. But you know what, though? The very same ones of those idiots that said I should have had a job, I wonder how they're doing. I wonder if they're sick. I wonder if their finances have just about deplenished. I wonder how they're doing. I wonder if somebody's taking care of them the same way I took care of my parents. I wonder how they're doing. And I wonder if that one child that's taking care of that sick parent, I wonder if somebody else is saying the same dumb, stupid ish that them cornbread eating niggas said to me. But they weren't real Christians. Those niggas were church folk. I wonder how they're doing. Has any challenges have they been facing? Have they faced any setbacks and backsets and breakdowns and meltdowns and shakedowns and takedowns and having to face people because they are low down? I wonder how's that faring for them? That's what I wonder. And yet these are the same ignorant fools that praised me for taking care of my parents. You were saying when I was struggling to take care of my parents that I needed a job and I couldn't get a job because I had to take care of both parents. But when that particular storm in my life was over with, you applauded me. I don't need your applause. Because the Joe Horn of old back then, he was younger, he was confused, he had a lot pressing on his mind, he had a lot going on his plate. But the next time, if there is a next time where we do cross paths, you're going to encounter a Joe Horn that will get right up in your face and will tell you, I don't need your applause. I don't need you for nothing. Because when I did need you, you were unavailable. You were my critic, and I didn't need a critic. What I needed was encouragement. Stay your hypocritical away from me. I don't need you now. What's up, Precious? What's going on? Thanks for joining us. I don't need you now. When I needed you, you were unavailable. You were too busy being the holier than thou church person, church man, a church woman, not a Christian, but a church goer. I don't need you now. I'm almost 40 years old. I don't need you now. And thank God I don't need you for nothing. Because it was the Most High that carried me through taking care of two sick parents. I survived that. And then the Most High helped me and my sister Misha going through the storm of taking care of mom. The Most High brought us through. Let me quote the Bible. Hitherto hath the Most High helped us. Do you hear me? Hitherto hath the Most High helped us. I'm going to preach that down the road. Hitherto hath the Most High helped us. When the Israelites received the victory, I believe it was at a place called Ebenezer. Hitherto hath the Lord helped us. Not man, not no church folk, not no fake, hypocritical, crack addicted deacon. Hitherto hath the Lord helped us. Not no whorish, womanizing preacher pastor who's old enough to be my grandfather, still flirting with women younger than he is. Help me. Not no crack addicted deacon playing church. Not no womanizing preacher that's old enough to be my pawpaw. But it's the Most High, the true beneficent, the true merciful, that carried me and carried my sister through this storm. The book does say that your enemies will fight against you, but thank God they wouldn't prevail against you. Thank God they didn't prevail against me. That's why I've learned to never be like anybody else or to never want the same thing that people have, because you don't know how much hell or how long they went through the hell that they got to acquire what they have. Be grateful for what you got. Be grateful for what you have. And be grateful for the time spent with your parents. And if there was any room for reconciliation with your parents, thank God for the reconciliation. You ain't got to say, man, I know I'm telling you the truth. You ain't got to like what I got to say. I know I'm telling you the truth. That's the problem with us now. We have become so allergic to the truth that when you do have somebody that has the guts and the intestinal fortitude to tell the truth, you always got to be finding some logical explanation why your wrongdoing is right and why the truth is being told is wrong. What the hamfag is wrong with y'all? It ain't all of you, but it's too many of you. Oh, I know I'm telling you the truth. But the very same ones that didn't lift a finger to help me, and the ones that didn't lift a finger to help me and my sister, you better hope and pray you never run into a situation like the challenges that my sister and I faced. And the challenge that I faced before it was me and my sister. Y'all better hope and pray you never go through that. Because if you did, the very same naysaying jackasses, guess what would happen? They will run for the hills like cowards. Y'all excuse me. I didn't mean to go that deep. But perhaps somebody needed to hear that. And maybe because they needed to hear that, that's why I said what I said. Man, I've held y'all long enough, man. It's almost 9:30. Listen, I want to thank y'all so much for listening to me on Facebook and YouTube. I really do appreciate y'all. I appreciate the likes. I appreciate the reaction. Now listen, donate to the cause. The Cash App is $hidden one truth. That's $ hidden one truth. Now this Saturday, which is our regular Sabbath, which is also going to be, according to the Jewish calendar, the new year. I'm going to be preaching. I'm going to be preaching on Saturday, the regular Sabbath, but I'm going to be wearing all white. And the reason why I'm going to be wearing all white is because according to the Jewish New Year, the Jewish calendar, which is the spring is the new year. White is symbolic of purity. White is symbolic of starting over, a clean slate. Now I'm going to be wearing all white, but you don't have to be wearing all white. But what I do want you to do is wear something white. I want you to wear something white, and also we're going to be having our Holy Communion. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be wearing something white, and we're going to have Holy Communion, and I'm going to preach to you. That's what we're going to do. So we may get started a little bit earlier than just 7:30. We may get started around 7 p.m. Between 7 p.m. and 7:30, but roughly, or rather tentatively, we're going to try to get started at 7 o'clock. So wear something white. I'm going to be wearing all white. We're going to have communion, and I'm going to preach. And I may preach a sermon on Black theology, or I just may preach a sermon to honor Mom, because the anniversary of Mom's passing was this past Saturday. So I'm going to do something, to pay my respects to Mom. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Peace, power, and blessings upon you. Thank you for listening. Like the video, share the video, tag your family and friends on Facebook, on YouTube. Like, share, and subscribe. And we're going to be broadcasting again for the Jewish New Year. We're going to have Holy Communion and wear something white, and I will preach. Until then, I'm Yosef Benjamin. Thank you for listening. Most High willing, we'll see you on the Sabbath. And to my Hebrew family and everybody else, according to the Jewish New calendar, Happy New Year. Peace and blessings upon you. I'll see you soon. Good night.